I remember talking to somebody that does sales, and they were talking to me as someone who's never done sales. And I said, what would you be concerned about with me getting into sales? And they said, I would be concerned with you not being able to take the consistent rejection. And I think there's overlap here with the content thing as well. It's not just, yes, you could get negative comments, different things like that, but you just have to say, this is where I'm going, and have a long-term view of it, and just walk that path, right? And be consistent with it. So
That's
find the
really
thing you're
valuable.
passionate about, be consistent, and just start doing it.
Welcome to the Cincinnati Business Podcast, where we elevate the voices of business owners, nonprofits, and subject matter experts across the greater Cincinnati area, and brought to you by the Cincinnati Podcast Studio. Well, hey everybody, welcome back to the Cincinnati Business Podcast. I have a unique guest today because when I say unique, a lot of times we talk with business owners in the area and we talk with them about the economics of their business and how things work and how they have developed and grown their organization. In this case, I'm talking with somebody who is actually a YouTube content creator. So one of the things I wanted to dive in with him today about is what does it look like to make money on YouTube, and what does it look like to build a personal brand on YouTube? Because I think that is valuable to everyone that we, as we try to build up the marketing for our businesses. So welcome with me to the show, Adam Mills from Adams Makes Beer. What's up, dude? Glad to have you.
It's good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh man, I'm excited to be able to talk this stuff with you because I'm a huge YouTube fan. An unfortunately addicted YouTube fan. I love it. And as a former YouTube content creator, like this is just really interesting stuff to me. So I'm glad that we get to talk about this a little bit. But obviously your channel is about beer making. And so I'm kind of curious, like before we even get into what you do on YouTube kind of thing, I'd love to understand your journey into the manufacture of beer. What is that for you?
Yeah, sure. So the first 10 years of my career, I was a high school teacher. I taught social studies for at-risk kids. Did that for 10 years. And then in the meantime, I started to make beer at home. And then I found out that you can judge beer, compete with beer, and being a relatively competitive young man at the time, and potentially even now, I'm like, oh, well, this is cool. So I really dove deep, and it was right in the time where there was a podcast called the Brewing Network coming out, and I had a pretty long commute. It would be anywhere from an hour to an hour and a half one way, and they had this backlog of information, and so I just went full on into it and started learning. And I started getting active in homebrew competitions and judging. And then through success that I had with that, it put me on the short list for a brewery that was opening in the town where I lived. So.
Dude, that's awesome, man. And then you're here at this brewery in town, and you are their main brewer, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And so you're kind of defining the taste for this brewery. What was it like for you to all of a sudden go from this kind of like homemade setup,
Sure.
which is very small compared to gallons upon gallons being made at a time? What was that like for you? What was that learning curve?
Well, it was interesting because, I was a very active home brewer. So when I was entering homebrew competitions, sometimes I would enter 30, 35 beers in a competition, which is not normal. Okay. So it is not normal. So I approach my home brewing with a very intense, scientific, process heavy, through a very process heavy lens. And then, but the reality is that making beer on the pro side is different. The equipment's different. It's actually meant for making beer. A lot of homebrew equipment is stuff that you can use to make beer. So I think a big part of the learning curve for me getting over the hump as a pro was when I was able to hire somebody about 6 months in. Things were going well and whatnot, but we needed another hand in the brewery. And I was able to hire somebody that had 7 years experience. And 7 years of experience to somebody that has 6 months of pro side experience it's night and day, right?
Yeah.
Still a dear friend of mine, Bill Gerds, and I learned so much from him in the couple years where we were working together, because I understood the concepts of balance and flavor development, and it's grown from there. But I had a decent understanding of that stuff. But just the nuts and bolts portion of operating a brewery day to day, I learned so much from Bill, just from a mentoring standpoint. And I think that really has really fed what I want to be doing in the YouTube space for other people.
Well, yeah. So that's one of the things that you and I have talked about off camera before, was that you recognize that there was a niche that was missing on YouTube. And we're jumping ahead a little bit, but like I kind of want to get into that. One of the parts of being on YouTube and creating an audience is having a niche that no one else is really providing for. And you do that. Tell us a little bit about how you found it and why you decided to go after it.
Sure. So I moved to Cincinnati to help open Cartridge Brewing, just outside Mason. And I had my professional network back home pretty well developed. And then moving here, I didn't really have anybody. And so there were times where I would go to YouTube and see, okay, well, there's got to be something on here. And there's some pro side stuff, but there's really not much at all. There's a tremendous amount of homebrewing content on YouTube. There's a lot of podcasts. There's a lot of audio stuff out there. But there wasn't a lot of hands-on, hey, I'm doing work in a brewery type stuff. So I decided to jump into it and start doing it myself. It's one of those things where, especially in today's day and age where there's so much information out there, you don't necessarily think you're going to be able to find a space where there's some elbow room to do your own thing. And I was fortunate to kind of start doing that while there's still that space in that niche.
Well, I think that's how I've always tried to approach businesses. Where is there needs not yet being met, and then going after that need. I mean, that was why we built the Cincinnati Podcast Studio. It's
Sure.
like no one else is doing video podcasting in Cincinnati to the level that needs to be done.
Sure.
And so you saw that as a whole pretty quickly, and because you were needing this information. Like, it is kind of funny to me that you are recognizing, like, I've learned on the backs of other content creators. Like, I think that's really interesting. So then you say, why don't I become a content creator and do some of the same things?
Yeah.
What was, from every content creator I've ever heard, it can actually be a very solitary environment to build like a YouTube channel or something like that. What was it like for you as you were getting this started, getting to the point where you started to actually get some subscribers, and like, what did it feel like as you were going through that process?
No, it's mortifying, right? Like, it's frightening because I don't know. I think people always say that, there's tons of good people in the craft beer industry, and there is. But there's also, as with anything, there's egos. There's parts of people's process where you're like, well, this is what I do. I'm not sure what other people do. And being what the internet is, you're consistently afraid of the comment section, right?
Yeah.
So hey, I'm Adam and I'm carbonating this beer today and this is what I'm doing. And then you're always worried about somebody else saying, well, why didn't you do this? This is dumb, this, that, and the other thing. I think that was one big hump. And then the other one was actually getting used to seeing yourself and hearing yourself on a recording.
Yeah.
And as somebody that taught for 10 years, and I'll say, like, I mean, I taught in a relatively like hostile environment. Like, like my, I mean, the kids that I taught, I love them. I still stay in touch with some of them, but like, they weren't the most eager to sit down and listen. You know what I mean? So I was used to being in front of people, holding attention and trying to get information across. But it's daunting. You know what I mean? It's a daunting thing. And especially I try to pull back the curtain as much as I can. So I'll show everything that I'm doing. I'll tell you why I do it that way based on this research or whatever. I am somebody that tries to always be learning, acquiring new skills and whatnot. So, I've approached it through that lens, and so I do think that that's made it easier for me because originally you're trying to think of, all right, so I'm going to record an IPA brew day. YouTube tells you that you need to have the title, "How to Make the Greatest IPA in the World."
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's not, one, it's not true.
Yeah.
Two, that's not who I am.
Yeah.
Right. Because I always view myself as somebody that's on a path. Right.
Yeah.
So, I always say, hey, listen, this is how I'm making IPA right now. The next time I do it, I'm going to learn something else and tweak it. But yeah, so I don't know. Those are some of the challenges of initially doing it, right?
Yeah. So then you create. What was your first video you created for the channel?
First video I did was the most difficult beer to brew, something like that. That was our rice lager cartucho that we did at Cartridge. And so, conceptually, we're talking earlier off camera about, the types of beers I like to drink and whatnot. I'm very technical in my appreciation of beer and kind of also have I view it the way I view food. I like to understand how balance is achieved in beer, what really makes things enjoyable to drink. Brewing that rice lager, that light lager, that gently flavored beer it's a challenge because if there's something wrong in your process, it's going to show, as opposed to a beer that's big, bold, over the top aroma and flavor wise. So, that was the first one. I have not watched that in forever. I probably look scared half to death. I did have a dear friend of mine, Andy, who still helps me out, but I was recording for maybe 2.5 months and sending him footage, and he was documenting and filing, and at about 2 months, I sent him something, and he goes, "Okay, we can use this." And it was like, oh, what? It took a while. I was recording myself work every day. Whoa. So there was 8 weeks of footage that I had sent him where, he's like, okay, finally, you don't look like you're going to pass out when the camera's rolling. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And again, for somebody that has a background being in front of people, it's tough.
Yeah.
It's tough.
Yeah.
So we actually dropped 3 or 4 videos at once because I figured that's what I should do. Somebody watches one, they can go see something else. So we kind of did a little batch of videos that we dropped right there.
So how did it go? You post these batch. Did anyone watch?
They did, because I had kind of been, greasing the wheels for a while with I started an Instagram page called Adam Makes Beer. And I started to make really short reels and it was all shot live. So it was a one-take thing, and I had however many seconds to show whatever process. So I'm like a maniac in there, trying to get everything in one take. But I'd actually gotten some followers doing that. And so that was always, the concept behind it was always farming eyes for the YouTube page, right? So that was kind of how that went. So I did get some subs initially. It worked for me.
Okay.
I think in part because there is that lack of pro side content out there. Again, I feel as if that helped, and there is a pretty well developed craft beer space. Now that's an umbrella term, right? Yeah. But so there is a craft beer space, and I'm a niche within that. Yeah. There was some, things went well. I think I got monetized, so that would be 1,000 subs and 4,000 watch hours.
I think that's
within a window,
right now,
and I did that within 7 months.
Wow, that's pretty fast.
It is fast.
Yeah.
Well, part of the problem for me though is there's, especially when you're in a space where you see massive creators. Yes. Right? And massive views. You can't understand the scale of it, right? And so sometimes you actually have to Google it and be like, hey, is this good? You know what I mean? You just ask the internet, hey, how many YouTube channels are monetized, right? Yeah. And then you do start to realize that, it is going well. And the YouTube monetization space is interesting because I'm not going to make money the same way Mr. Beast does. Yeah. With his 70-some million subs or whatever, and
over 200. I think now. It's crazy.
So insane.
Yeah.
I've listened to interviews with him, and it's just a testament to, and it's kind of how I got into it. I was watching some shorts. And it was actually a Gary Vee short video. And I'm not the craziest about all of his stuff, but he did say, if there's something that you're passionate about and you're willing to tell it to your phone, you need to be making content. When I was teaching, I was tenured, and it was very difficult for me to lose my job.
Yeah.
And now that I am not doing that, it's helpful to create, some stability for yourself, right?
Yeah.
And so just even off the bat, I was looking at it as like, hey, at the very least, this is an online resume. You know what I mean? People are going to see how I manage the people I work with, what my general temperament is like. This is not going to be a bad thing, I don't think. So
yeah. Okay, so then let's take it back a step there, because one of the things that I've heard so much in the digital marketing space is that often audiences don't transfer between platforms. But what you're telling me is that Instagram actually did work as a catalyst for launching your YouTube page. Maybe you haven't heard the same thing that I have, but it feels like people usually have their space that they love, and they love the content that is in that space, and it doesn't always change to a long format video on YouTube or something like that. So I'm curious, did you find that in the end, that really was a big catalyst, or it was just enough to get you started?
I feel like it was enough to get me started, because currently my YouTube channel is larger than my Instagram. But since I've been going full-time on content creation, my Instagram's really growing. And it's not growing, it's growing far faster than my YouTube. So when you say, there may not be a direct link, I can see that. I can also say, to kind of answer the original question, I had no idea that people even said that. That's how green I was. So when I started my Instagram, I was 45 years old, and I was done using social media. I wasn't using it anymore. And then I'm like, oh, I need to learn how to do this. And so it's a strange thing to have to learn and whatnot. So I was just going in and doing it, not knowing anything.
Yeah.
Right. And so maybe it's a good thing that I was just like, hey, let's just go get it. Because, if I had heard that, maybe I wouldn't have tried.
Interesting.
You know what I mean? So just the fact that I didn't know any better may have helped me out in the long term. Because when you said that was news to me. I'm like, oh, really?
That's interesting.
Man, I don't know.
Well, that may also be an old school marketing idea. It may not be the thing anymore.
It's not necessarily that, but I do think it goes back to, the idea that, and again, not that it's groundbreaking. There's lots of people that show you their day-to-day stuff. Back at the time, I was watching Alex Steele. He has a YouTube channel. He's a blacksmith. He started making blacksmithing videos when he was maybe 12 or 13.
Is his actual last name Steele?
It is. It's so
really?
Perfect.
Oh my gosh!
And he was
amazing.
This adorable 13-year-old out, making blacksmith trinkets to sell, and he's built this whole business. And we were watching this stuff, and he was actually going through a process of moving from the UK to Montana. And then I was watching a video of him, setting up his new shop. And I was thinking, well, I bet he's excited to get back to actually doing his work. And then it hit me. I'm like, the videos are the work. Mm-hmm. That's the videos are the product, right? Yes, he's making knives, swords, different things like that, and he can sell them. Yeah. But the primary thing he's doing is actually providing this entertainment or this information, right?
Huh. Yeah.
So yeah, I do think that I benefited from the lack of hands-on brewery content that was on Instagram.
Yeah.
And so I think that did give me a bump. It did help me push, but I don't think it's one-to-one, especially now that I'm seeing the growth on Instagram that I've been seeing since going full-time, because I'm to the point to where I'm doing 3 to 4 videos a day, sometimes 5, on Instagram and YouTube.
Whoa.
So yeah, primarily that's in shorts.
Yeah.
So shorts are, for me, the same thing as reels. Yeah. On Instagram.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm making a large volume, but I'm also, so the main thing that I'm seeing the data off that feedback is, and not everybody needs to be doing that volume, but how I see those platforms using short content, I get more subscribers and younger subscribers from YouTube Shorts. So I have a full demographic shift down. Mm-hmm. So my biggest group is, 25 to 34, whatever it is. Yeah. That area is really growing from my shorts on YouTube. And YouTube basically treats them as advertisements for your channel. That's the way I view it.
What do you mean by that?
Because that's where I'm pulling. So I have longer form videos that are my regular YouTube videos. And then it is clips out of that are linked back to the main videos.
Yes. Okay.
Okay. So most of my subs now are coming from shorts. Okay. And I also see them as highly manipulated, because I will drop a short that's very similar to another, like it'll be pulled from the same, Listerman Brew Day or whatever. Very similar clip, same quality, same length, and one will get 800 views instantly, and then never another view. It'll just go flat. I'll have one that gets 20 views for the first 4 days, and then it just rockets up to that baseline number. So I find that I get a baseline number from my YouTube stuff as advertisement. Since I've been doing 3 to 4 videos a day on Instagram, I'm getting 25 to 35 subs a day.
Whoa.
And that was after leveling, because I had leveled out at about 4,700. And so just in the past month, I've gotten close to 500 subs from the added volume, right? And then now it's my job then to make those people realize that there's this
YouTube channel,
deeper stream of content on the YouTube channel. Yeah.
Interesting. Wow. So
I'm thinking about trying to leverage Instagram Live in order to help get people.
Do your podcast live.
So either that or some other little mini bit of something. Okay. So like right now I'm using StreamYard and it's free, and I can go directly to my YouTube with StreamYard. And I'm very not tech savvy. So I know there's other platforms that are free to where I could go to both at once, but I need to figure that out. But I have a feeling that a key to driving stuff over to the YouTube channel might be some live content on Instagram.
Interesting.
But that's all just something I'm riffing on. So.
Yeah. Well, I had literally just kind of heard the concept about posting tons every day. Because a couple years ago people would say no, just one a day, don't overwhelm your subscribers, but then I now know that there's an Instagram channel, I think it's an Instagram channel that they post 100 pieces of content a day.
That's wild.
And they have something like 30 million followers on this thing. And it's first off, I have no clue how they make that much content.
It's got to be all AI stuff.
It's got to be something crazy. Yeah. But I think that's actually a really unique perspective, because most people in marketing for their business, they don't actually... They say as long as I'm just posting every once in a while or something like that. But it sounds like from your perspective, no, the growth actually comes when you are very active on a platform and consistently posting multiple times a day, if not more.
Yes. I think the real gold mine there is figuring out your long form video opportunities.
Yeah.
Because that's where the super majority of, that's almost all my content comes off of that. So all the shorts come off the long form stuff.
Interesting.
So I go to Listerman. I have an hour and 20-minute long form video on YouTube for that brew day. I process it through, there's a wide range of them. I'm using Opus Clip right now. Yeah. I get 35 shorts out of it.
Yeah.
We were discussing beforehand, I realized that Opus Clip is not, you give it the video, push a button, then everything's perfect. It's a tool in and of itself.
Yes.
And you get better at using that.
Yes.
Right? But for me, it is the best way to be able to process those things as a one-man show.
Yeah.
As somebody
explain what Opus Clips is to those who are in this space that don't really know what we're talking about.
Yeah, it's an AI shorts generator. And so what I found is you can either give it a YouTube URL or any video URL, or the raw video that you took, and it will create shorts for you with a full script, and then you can give it closed captioning. It'll do all that for you. I will say I started playing with it a year ago and just gone back into it very aggressively. Even within that window of time, the script is way tighter than it used to be, because I'm using technical brewing terms.
Yeah.
So, when you're making beer, when you're brewing, when you're boiling something, that liquid is called wort, W-O-R-T. It will tell me work. WORK.
Yeah.
Right. But there's a few German words that we use in the brewing process that it doesn't get right, but everything else is very, very tight. It's very, very surprising. So I put that hour and 20-minute video in. It can give me 35 shorts, and you can tell, how long you want the duration to be, and then you can download them and upload them to your platforms.
Well, it's a powerful tool. We don't use it super often in our day-to-day workflow just because we can do everything manually.
Yes.
Since we are video editors. Mm-hmm. But for the one-man show, it is so simple to use. I mean, I used it the other day when I did a product for a conference where I was doing live shorts, where basically, like, during the conference, I would capture something from somebody who was about to speak. I would edit it together, post it online while they were speaking, so that people knew, like, hey, this is what's happening right now in the conference. And, like, I would notice it would get, like, hyphenated names correct. Yes. When it was trying to, like, pull all this stuff through. And, like, all this stuff that I'm like, how in the world did you... But it's really amazing where AI is going. Yes. But you were talking about duration. I think that's another thing that's really interesting to me, because as we've been posting for the Cincinnati Business Podcast, we have started to see that certain platforms like certain durations and stuff like that. What are you finding when it comes to short form? What are you finding is kind of like the sweet spot for length in those spaces? Mm-hmm.
I am still definitely learning as I go with all this stuff, and I am kind of, I'm high intensity, and so right now I'm saying to myself, all right, how much content can I make that has quality information in it and post, and that's the kind of the ceiling that I'm finding right now. I will say, though, that the metrics I give is I try to keep it around 30 seconds, 30 seconds and under. It's generally closer to 30 seconds or a little bit more because I am trying to get across some sort of, concept, right? And that's difficult to do in under 30 seconds,
it is.
Right?
It's real hard.
Even when you're chopping out all of your spaces. Yes. So I will say something that I've seen that may even be more important than that 30-second and under limit. If you were to look at something that I edit, I just did a really enjoyable informational podcast with Richard Priest. He owns Escarpment Labs in Canada, a yeast lab.
Oh, okay.
He's brilliant, and I was doing a Q&A with him. And when we finished, I downloaded that because, again, it was all live. I cut every single pause out of the audio for that because I know that maintaining the pace of that video is going to be the biggest thing.
For your shorts.
For my shorts, for my short form content, right?
Okay, which I think Opus does that for you, right? It'll cut out pauses and stuff?
It can. Okay. It can. I'm not sure how much it does. And again, I'm still very new with that product too. But I know that when I'm editing myself, so when I got that interview with Richard, I went through and painstakingly clip that. I use Adobe Rush for it. Again, I know I need to step up my game, but
Rush does a good job.
I edited that very, very tightly because I knew it was going to be a gold mine for shorts. Yeah. And so it would keep me from, I could do it once and I could get my 35 shorts out of it and they're ready to roll.
Yeah.
I will say pacing on those short videos is incredibly important, and which can be challenging depending on what you want to do. The other thing is either being able to change camera angle or overlay stills or other video, so B-roll. Oh. So I find the short video and then something visually happening is very, very key, because sometimes you can see these ridiculous shorts. I used to wonder why they did it on YouTube, where it'll be like a podcast interview with somebody, and it's a split screen with the podcast on the bottom and then somebody playing a video game on top. Have you ever seen that?
I have.
Like a driver game?
It really weirded me out at first when I first saw it.
Yes, and then you realize all they're doing is giving somebody action on the screen to still stay engaged with the video.
Interesting.
So sometimes, like when I chop up silly things from like a live stream, as I'm talking, I'll overlay pictures, still pictures over that, just because it generates pace, right?
Yeah.
So I think those are kind of the two metrics, and they're both pace driven. Well, all three. The shorter video, changing visuals, and then lack of space between words. All those things play into holding that engagement, because that's the whole key to getting more people to see that video, right?
Yeah.
When that thing hits the internet, when it hits Instagram, when it hits YouTube, it's testing that first batch of people that are going to see it. It's not like all your followers are going to see it, right? And then that's how it decides who's going to see it from there, the level of engagement. So
interesting. So, I mean, yeah, if you think of it even more simply than that, like the amount of time it takes to just push your finger up to go to the next video, you've got to try and beat their interest before they can swipe to the next one.
You got to have that hook on some level, and it's tough.
Yeah.
It's tough. You can do gimmicky stuff. I've done gimmicky stuff.
Things like wait till the end. Or
so what I found is oftentimes if I have, because I'm silly, I like to have fun, I like to joke around, and so I'm doing a 2-hour live stream podcast, Q&A podcast, and so there's going to be plenty of times me joking with people in the chat or riffing or whatever, and so when I get into those segments, I completely lost my train of thought.
We're talking about making things interesting in the hook.
So if I get into a bit that's ultimately just going to be something funny that we discussed, or that's something that's kind of going to pitch something that's coming up, I will clip the punchline and put it at the front of the video. And so,
oh man,
okay, so I'll actually drop like some payoff.
Yeah.
So like, clearly I'm excited or starting to laugh about something. Yeah. So I'll include that at the beginning of the video, and then a quick brand flash, which is just Adam Makes Beer with a YouTube symbol, and a quick can pop sound. And that's a half a second, and then it goes into the video, right? So I'll actually have the punchline play twice in that video, but or some payoff,
or it would loop to the beginning again where the payoff is.
So sometimes when I do stuff like that, I'll actually pull part of the payoff into the beginning. Yeah. And then so there's just little things you can do.
Well then, okay, so this is a selfish question then.
Sure.
You have your show, your podcast, and you're making a ton of content out of each of those shows.
Yes.
Why did you choose podcasting as kind of like the next phase of what Adam Makes Beer is doing?
Just because it's an option. So for a long time, my live streams were not podcasts. They were just available. They were just live streams. I'm going live for an hour and a half, 2 hours. And then I realized, that video that I download to cut short videos or shorts out of, I can just throw that on Spotify.
Yeah.
And then I can link that to Apple Podcast or whatever. And I really don't know what's happening there. I just know that apparently I did it right enough the first time that Apple Podcast, Spotify, and other podcast sources will carry it as well. So,
what made you then originally go to that long format interview Q&A style? Was it, did you like it mainly because it then generated a lot of other short form content, or what was it for you?
Really, it was, I think there's people that want to have a conversation with me about beer. Yeah. Because I wasn't doing live streams at first.
Yeah.
I was doing the in-brewery content. And then my buddy was like, well, have you thought about doing a live stream? And I was like, well, that's intimidating. But so we're like, well, okay. And so I put the word out, hey, give me some questions. So I prepared some questions, and then I have like a pre-prepared list, and then what ends up coming up in the chat. And then I did it, and people loved it. And I think that's driven like connection with me with other people, like authentic connection more than anything else, because crazy.
You have direct response,
just that direct response. Yeah. And then people actually get to see you, on some level, still in front of a camera, but they get to see you live.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I think that's, the other thing we've been watching, there's an Australian guy who does cooking content. We love him. He's like just a guy. He's skilled. He knows what he's doing. His videos are tight. They're great, but he's just himself. And like, I think sometimes we get caught up in that, but you don't have to be anything else for people, right? Like, even like there's one, Niall Red, he's a chemistry guy. He's like, not like, the most charismatic. He's himself.
He's a chemist.
He's a chemist, and he's a little bit dorky, and he loves what he's doing. And, so yeah, I mean, that's all you have to be. And so that's what I found, the live stream stuff was what actually like started attaching people to me. Coupled with the fact that I'm helping people with something they're passionate about.
Yeah.
And I think that's what people need to understand when you have your niche. All you're trying to do is share something you're passionate about with your niche, because there's other people that are passionate about that, right? Mm-hmm. And when you share in a genuine manner, people connect with it.
Yeah.
And so like now, like people will send in a comment, it was so cool to hear you read my question on the podcast. And it's like, hey, I'm just some guy.
Just some guy.
Like literally, I'm just some guy in
From
like
Cincinnati,
a side room.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But people get excited. And I think especially when you're helping them with their career, but also their passion-based career, you really form such a strong connection with people. So
one of the hardest parts about podcasting is the moment you stop talking. I mean, think about it. The majority of the work that you probably put into creating a podcast is in the editing phase. So what if you didn't have to do the editing phase? Here at the Cincinnati Podcast Studio, we help you just come in and talk. We do all the rest. We have the cameras, we have the microphones, we have the lights, and then we have the editing tools to create the perfect content out of your podcast. Not only do you get the full podcast in video and audio, you also get short form content that you can use across all of your pages in social media. So if you want to learn more, go to CincinnatiPodcastStudio.com/tour to learn more and schedule your tour with us today. Yeah. I mean, that's so true. I mean, the people who are homebrewers or something like that, they're a beer maker.
Sure.
Like they tell everyone about it.
Yeah.
Like they know that that's what you like to do. And so it is interesting. You've tapped into a very strong community with your page. But I think it's also kind of curious because do you feel like you've limited yourself from an audience perspective because of how you've branded yourself as a professional brewer versus the classic home brewer, which may have a wider appeal?
That's a really good question. I did a live stream podcast with another guy, and it was funny because he didn't put it this way when he interviewed me, but I'd watched a previous one where he's like, yeah, there's this guy who's saying he'd like to be on my live stream or whatever, and he keeps talking about being a pro, and he thought that was like an ego move, right? Like, oh, I'm a professional. And
professional home brewer.
Yeah. Well, and in my mind, the reason that I to this day still do is because there's not a lot of it out there. So I also feel as if the line between the amateur side doing it for the love of it and the pro side is it's the same in so many ways, right?
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of crossover between that, and I have a robust homebrew following as well.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people either are actively chasing that dream or just have the dream of doing it, even if they'll never do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like in the same way when I watched the blacksmithing guy, I'm never going to make a knife. Yeah. But it's awesome. He makes, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Sometimes you just like getting into somebody else's space and experiencing it through them,
Yeah.
So does it limit? I see how it could. I do keep I feel as if my base of content is relatively broad because I'll do things, and again, I'll approach it from a way of the advice I wish I had when I became a professional. So there's the technical content, but there's also, leadership development stuff that I'll do.
Yeah.
There's a range of things, leadership.
Yeah.
And even career development, because I think for a lot of people in the beer space, they say, oh, well, I want to be a brewer. You work your way up, you're brewing. okay, well then is that the end of your career, or how do you actually build a career in this space, right?
Yeah.
So I do talk about a range of things, even though it is still very much heavy toward the technical content.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's where you are really skilled. Like you said, you are a technical brewer.
Sure.
There are people who look at it from the creative space or something like that, but you're like, I like the data, I like the numbers, I like the process, trying to figure out how all that stuff works. So you played to your strengths really well in the work that you do. But I guess then on a data perspective, the hardest thing to think of is how do you make money doing this work? Because you look at the Mr. Beasts and you say that per million views, he may only be getting something like $10,000 or $100,000 for someone who is the biggest YouTuber in the world.
Absolutely.
Like, how does it work for you to make an income off of a YouTube channel and potentially your Instagram channel? I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's never going to be a views game. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't see the math behind how that works. But some of the areas where I am aiming at is as somebody that, creates, I don't think there's anybody that creates more educational pro side brewing content than I do.
Yeah.
There's value in that, especially to raw material suppliers. So I think that's one way for me to leverage that. I don't have to be the person that gets 8 million views on a video if I have a foothold on my niche, right?
Yeah.
So if I have the concentrated audience, there's value there for raw material suppliers, allied members, things like that. So being able to get sponsorships from people like that by showing, there's still a lot of people that pump money into an advertisement in a magazine that maybe never gets seen, as opposed to somebody who is hands-on working with your product in the industrial space.
And their audience is people who actually are interested in this.
And you can actually see it.
Yeah.
Right? So when you put that ad in a magazine or that banner on a website, it's more difficult to gather data on how many eyes have actually seen that. And in the space that we're talking about, you do have that data. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
you can watch your retention numbers in those moments. And
absolutely. So that's one metric. Some other things that I have spun off of that, I offer when I go in and I do these brewer for days or these behind the scenes things when I partner with different breweries. That's a marketing option for me. So I can have those folks as clients, right?
Yeah.
To where like I was able to, I was just talking to some folks and I'm like, when I do this full brew day and I release these 35 shorts, I can pretty much guarantee you're going to get between 200,000 and 250,000 views on the total content that we're about to make. Wow. And it's unique, and it's unique content because I'm working with their brewer in their space, right? So many ways that the average craft beer fan or brewer can't get into all those spaces, right?
Yeah.
So that's one element as well. And then I've also leveraged that into, I do consultation as well. And so it's not some of the typical industry consultation where sometimes if you're building out a new space, you would have somebody that would be talking to the general contractor about their plumbing, their electric, this, that, and the other thing. I'm more of a coach that comes in and works with you hands-on to improve your processes. And then when I leave, you have SOPs that you can edit, continue to develop as you go. But I feel very good about the value proposition of being able to say, I can come in and I can make your processes better and help in the area of quality. So that's how I'm leveraging that as I'm using all this stuff as advertisement for other things, right? Yeah.
Well, even the biggest content creators in the world say that the way to make the money is not the views.
Yeah.
They say it's the whatever thing you are selling around it.
Yes.
So you're selling both the marketing for these individual locations, which I think is a great way to make money. And then also, hey, I'm an expert. hire me. I will consult with you and make your beer and make your processes better.
And then the thing that's exciting for me is I always get to be learning. So I'm going into different spaces, seeing how different people attacked this problem or that problem. And so I love learning new stuff too. So it feeds me on multiple different levels, right? So yes, I can go in and do marketing stuff, but I'm also going to learn from that. I'm going to enjoy it. I'm making a contact. There's a lot of things that go into it. So yeah.
That's cool, man. I mean, I was listening to, I think one of your most viewed videos, where it was, I think it was something like 22,000 on your big video. And it was, but listening to you talking about like very specific details, like almost chemistry style conversations that you're having on these videos, it shows, one, that you are definitely an expert at what you do, but two, it shows that there's this whole level of like knowledge that you have to share with people that makes it valuable to subscribe to you. So when we're looking at, say, another business out there and they're trying to start their YouTube channel, what is like a pitfall that you could see that could like show up when they're just making generic content and trying to just post it out there on YouTube and say like, hey, let's build an audience on YouTube? Like, what are some tips that you have to try and get people to past that, just starting on a YouTube channel, just trying to grow, and specifically about their content?
Yeah, specifically about their content, I feel like, number one, you have to be doing stuff that you are actually excited about, because you're not going to conjure that any other way. Like I feel like the equivalent is, I think my podcast voice is my same voice as always, but like you don't want to sound like the radio announcer or whatever, where you shift gears and you're like, this Saturday. Yeah. I'm like, no, you don't talk like that all the time. You know what I mean? So when you get into those videos, if you want to, people like to see your excitement about something. So you actually have to be talking about things you're excited about. Yeah. Right? And hopefully the things that you're excited about are the things that bring value to others, right? So I think the things you're choosing to talk about are very important. And I feel as if you also just have to be bold enough to keep doing it, because the biggest thing is the reason why, you can have 500 people listen to a podcast and it puts you in a pretty elevated tier, a higher tier than you might think, is most people do a couple and then never do them again. You have to you have to stick to it, and you have to keep grinding and keep doing that, right? Because it's how you're going to get better.
Well, why do you say that? Why would you say that 500 subscribers makes you like
500 views?
500 views. Why would you say that elevates you above most podcasters?
Well, I'm just saying, just from when you pull up data on that, like a lot of podcasts don't get 500 views. Yeah. You know what I mean?
That's true.
So it actually puts you in the plus side of the equation, I believe, if the stuff I've looked at. You know what I mean? So I do think that it's just really important to talk about the stuff that you're passionate about, and keep doing it, because you're going to get better. You do need the volume on some level. Yeah. Right? And yeah, have fun with what you're doing. And try to add value for people. I know that might be kind of super corny, but the reality is
that makes sense.
You have to talk about, if somebody's going to listen to your stuff, they're going to be people that are interested in you, right? And it doesn't, just because it's not going to be 10,000 subs, 1,000 loyal subs can be way more valuable than 10,000 subs that really don't care about you. You know what I mean? So I think the metrics portion of the game can dissuade people from doing it.
That totally makes sense. Yeah. And in your case, you have a small but dedicated amount of followers. And so they, like you said, really engage in your live streams. They love the content that you produce. And then they are loyalists. They love the idea of like, I want to be like you someday. They see their future in you. And I think that's really interesting, because the majority of people who put out content now for their business is like, oh, we need a brand video, which brand videos are great. They provide a service. There is a space for them, but they're not going to grow a channel.
Sure.
They're not going.
Show us your people. Show us what they do well.
Yeah.
Right.
Shows your
what I mean?
personality.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so, and that's the thing. I feel like there's certainly elements of what I produce that are non-professional, whether it be video quality, the presenter itself, the audio, the editing, right? But what people don't understand is the bar for the bar is not necessarily what you think it is when it comes to creating content, right? It's actually being yourself and having fun with it is far more important than any of those things.
The amount of videos I've watched this last couple weeks, I crashed my car the other week.
Oh, no.
I in the snow slid off the road, hit a tree.
Sure.
Which no big deal. I was like, sweet, now I get to learn how to fix this. And so I've been on YouTube watching all these videos of these guys who are obviously not video people.
Yes.
They're mechanics who are just saying, hey, here's how I did this. And it is saving my butt when I'm trying to learn all this stuff. And I think that's a super valuable thing. It's like, I don't want him to be like the most well-produced video because I just want to know that he's going to tell me the right stuff.
Yes.
And that's why I find a video on changing a fender on a Volkswagen, it has 40,000 views on it.
Sure.
Because that's what people are looking for.
Yep.
And so the same thing with you and same thing with other brands is like the more we can create realism, authenticity, show personality, I think that is more valuable to people in the long run.
And don't make a commercial.
Yeah.
I think that's the other thing that sometimes, we can get stuck in the mud with is, obviously you're a business. That's the name that's the name of your Instagram handle, or you know what I mean? We know it's a business, but show us something else. And I think sometimes, like when I see some raw material suppliers, if they're making something informational about their product, it feels more like a commercial because it looks like one.
Yeah.
And so it's not to say that you want to have low quality or anything like that, but there is a difference. There is a difference. You don't need to have this thing that necessarily looks like a commercial in order for it to hit well for you within that space.
Wow. Okay. I feel like I've learned a ton from you
Oh, wow.
on this today. Thank you. This is
very
great.
kind.
That's great. This has been so good. I mean, so I would just love to hear, last question I've got for you is like, what would you tell people who are looking like right now, the number one tip for them starting a YouTube channel and trying to create a career around it?
Mm-hmm.
What would you tell somebody right now who's trying to start from scratch, 0 subscribers? What would that be?
I think that the best way to do it is you do have to start with something that you are enthralled with, something you're passionate about. Okay.
Yeah.
So you have to have that. You don't have to be the expert because sometimes people enjoy the journey as well. All right. There's kind of that whole niche of the 20 something that buys a van, converts it into something, and then drives around. People like seeing the process.
Yeah.
Okay. So you don't have to be the expert before you start making something. You can show people the road.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think
most channels grow that way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so again, it does need to be something that you're excited about, genuinely interested in. Having expertise is great as well. Mm-hmm. Not to say that that's a bad thing. But I do think having, a plan. Because early on, I decided I wasn't going to be the guy that had this is the way to make the best IPA on earth. I'm the guy where, for me, my brewing journey as a professional brewer became much more enjoyable when I became somebody that aimed at the bullseye rather than somebody that hit the bullseye. My entire career, I'm like, oh, I'm going to make the perfect this. I'm going to make the perfect this. And it led me to being incredibly unhappy. Okay.
Yeah.
Instead, when I was able to downshift and say, I'm going to be the person that pursues this. I'm going to be the person that pursues the perfect German Helles, right? Because that keeps me hungry. That keeps me working to get better. It keeps me growing. So yeah, I think kind of looking at things through that lens, I think there's some way forward there too, right? Start doing it.
Really valuable.
Be consistent.
Yeah.
Have a little backlog for people, build up some content before you start releasing.
Yeah.
And then come up with a schedule that works for you. I did tie it into an Instagram page, but people can do it different ways. I've not found much leverage on TikTok. I haven't tried that hard. TikTok can be great too. So yeah, I remember talking to somebody that does sales, and they were talking to me as someone who's never done sales. And I said, what would you be concerned about with me getting into sales? And they said, I would be concerned with you not being able to take the consistent rejection. And I think there's overlap here with the content thing as well. It's not just, yes, you could get negative comments, different things like that, but you just have to say, this is where I'm going, and have a long-term view of it, and just walk that path, right? And be consistent with it. So find the thing you're passionate about, be consistent, and just start doing it.
And be ready for a really long journey.
Absolutely.
Because you said you didn't even get monetized for 7 months, and that's fast.
For sure.
Yeah.
And even the monetization that I have it's very, very small.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's very, very small. That's not the money play for me long term with this. It's the other avenues that it creates for me.
Same. I think in my time when I quit doing YouTube stuff, I had like 4,000 subscribers, about 500,000 views, and I only made $1,000.
Yes.
Off of it. So you don't make a lot of money off of views. Correct. But it is a good milestone.
Yes.
To say like, hey, we hit this threshold, 1,000 subscribers.
Definitely.
That's a big deal.
Definitely.
Yeah. So, okay, dude, Adam, this has been awesome.
Well,
Thank you. You have dropped so many nuggets. I love it. This is amazing.
That's very kind of you.
So as we end every episode with, there's your camera. Give us your pitch as if we haven't met you before, and let people know how they can get connected with you.
Absolutely. My name is Adam Mills. I have the YouTube channel, Adam Makes Beer. I make in-brewery content, behind-the-scenes content to show your customers, other professional brewers, behind-the-scenes stuff on how things work in a craft brewery. What else? I can do, we can leverage that for marketing opportunities for your brand. You can have me come in and work with your brew team to hands-on with your equipment to help improve your quality processes and efficiency processes. And yeah.
How do they get in touch with you?
You can find me on Instagram. Follow me on Instagram or on YouTube, both at Adam Makes Beer, and shoot me a DM.
Awesome, dude. Adam, seriously, thank you so much for all the time that you spent with us today.
Yeah,
this has been so fun. I can't wait for people to listen to this show. This is going to be fantastic.
Awesome.
Thank you.